Alrighty, so we are looking at specific nutrition strategies that are related to weight loss. So when we have like a client who is trying to drop a few pounds here and there, these are the best strategies to sort of help them do that as healthy a way as possible, but also maybe in a way that we can be as aggressive as possible while also still, not putting our health at risk. Like you'll have people who go on those like 1,200 calorie diets or like, um, does anybody remember? I know a lot of folks in here might even be too young to remember this. But like if you were in the weight loss industry, if you were in the fitness industry, like I gotta say, it was probably like 10 years ago. The big thing on the market was this ECGC stuff that you could take as like a supplement, which is a hormone that your body produces. Pregnant women produce a lot of it actually. And it's this hormone that you would make. And then like you'd stick it under your tongue. And the idea was that it would give you so much hormonal energy that like you didn't have to eat any calories. And so then it was paired with a 600 calorie diet. And this was like all the rage back probably 10 years ago. It was like the big thing that I kept seeing. Every client asked me about it, like, does anybody remember that? Let's see if I can Google that.
I worked with someone who did it.
Man, it was, yeah, crazy that people would do that. But you would do this like 600 calorie diet. And this extract and green tea and all this stuff. It was just silly. Because here's the thing, like, honestly, it's not really about the calories. 600 calories is not great. But if you've got plenty of like fat to tap into, your body can live off that. That's no problem at all. You've got the calories. My problem with 600 calories is that like you don't have enough of like room to get in vitamins and minerals. That's why that diet is so freaking unhealthy. So anyway, that was like the big thing. And then juicing came right afterwards, which was also like a hyper low calorie diet. So anyway, a lot of fad diets out there. We're going to talk a little bit about them, but let's take a look at our learning objectives today. So I want you guys to be able to provide your clients with food intake suggestions. So we are going to kind of go through the math for how to calculate that for our clients, understand the guidelines for like why those numbers are the way they are. And then we want to be able to communicate all this information. So when it comes to communicating information about like weight loss, there is a lot of really bad information out there. And so it becomes really easy to sort of spout that off. I'll be honest, guys, I know better, but I have definitely used the explanation before that like, hey, you want to eat small meals throughout the day because it keeps your metabolism stoked. Now, we just spent the last month or so talking about metabolism, and we know that like eating small meals throughout the day does not stoke your metabolism. It does not speed the rate at which your cells burn energy up. We do know that that is true, but we do also know that when people eat small meals frequently throughout the day, they tend to have an easier time staying to a diet because it minimizes errors. It minimizes the amount of mistakes you make, because when you bring in like a large meal, the portion sizes are off by just a little bit here or a little bit there, and you bring in way more calories than you think you do. So that's one of the reasons why like that weight loss tip has been so successful. Of these has nothing to do with metabolism, but has been proven to sort of be effective. And then the same thing is true on the other side. Like it also keeps you rather full. It leaves you feeling fuller longer throughout the day, which is also a really great way to stick to a diet. So have I used that explanation before, even though it's not necessarily true? Absolutely. Because sometimes we boil our information down to the fastest thing you can say with the most effectiveness. You try to like, what this is where like group exercise classes, I'm sure all of you guys have heard like, hey, don't let your knees come past your toes when you squat. Right? That's like a classic squat tip. For the record, you can totally go past your knees can go past your toes. Like, in fact, David, you and Hector pretty much have to let your knees go past your toes because your friggin' femur is 20 feet long. Like that is going to be anatomically a little bit different for everybody. But the reason that note sort of got accepted so easily and every trainer started saying it is because when people stick their butt out in order to keep their knees from going past their toes, they end up activating their glutes better. So it's like really a very effective tip, even if it's not, you know, the most necessary or scientifically accurate and stuff. So I think a lot of like the weight loss industry has sort of been born out of this, you know. One of the reasons why it's so freaking difficult to talk about diet and exercise and nutrition in particular is because like there's just a lot of misinformation out there. And some of it's harmful, you know, but some of it is also like some of it is misinformation that's helpful. So we need to be able to sort of sift through all that because our clients are going to have you're going to get a lot of questions. I'm sure at this point, like every one of you guys, I mean, Simon, I think you're the new, you know, you and Gabriel are the newest, right? But I wouldn't be surprised if already in the first, like, you know, 5 weeks you've been here, you've told people that you're studying to be a personal trainer, and they have probably asked you a lot of questions like, oh, what should I do? What should I exercise? Like, I'm sure that someone has approached you about like diet and exercise tips. I could be wrong, but that's my theory.
Yeah, for sure. But it's kind of awkward when you're just standing there quiet because you haven't really touched that subject yet.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Plus, I mean, there's always more to learn, you know, like my girlfriend had a great question the other night. She was like, is it true that you like when you work out really hard, like your muscles will be way colder later? And I was like, not really, because like metabolically, like you'd have like increased blood flow to that area in response. But then I started thinking about it a little bit deeper, and I don't know if this is true. I didn't take the time to look this up or anything. But I do know that like sometimes like people who are trying to like warm up their hands, stick your hands in your pocket and then you put them back in the cold air, and you stick your hands in your pocket, you put them back in the cold air. Like the way that your body regulates temperature is, you know, it restricts your blood vessels whenever you're really cold. And that way, like the cold air in the atmosphere can't get carried into your blood and lower your body temperature. So that's why your hands feel so cold in particular, because they're already very small blood vessels. And then when you're hot, the exact opposite happens. Your blood vessels sort of expand and then they move to the surface of your skin so that like you can vent heat off and use the atmosphere to kind of cool you down and stuff. So I was like, and I know that like when people put their hands, like people will artificially like put their hands in like hot water or, you know, something just temporarily to kind of warm them up. And it is like temporary relief. That's kind of nice. But then you bring it back into the cold air. And what ends up happening is your blood vessels expand in response to the heat. And then they stay really open, which then really cools them down much faster when you put them back into the cold air. And so I told her, I was like, well, maybe, because she was freezing after we went snowboarding the other day. Well, she went skiing. But yeah, like it was so funny. And I was like, maybe, but I never really taken the time to actually think about it. So that right there is kind of like, at first I was like, no, you know, like, but then I thought a little bit more about it. I was like, yeah, maybe, you know, and that's, I think, where diet and exercise kind of come in, you know, like nutrition gets so complicated because a lot of times we think we have the perfect answer, when the reality of it is, you know, the answer can be a little bit more complicated, you know. But again, kind of going back to what I've been saying this whole class, the one thing that we do know that is capital T true, guys, is that if you have a calorie surplus, you will gain weight. And if you have a calorie deficit, you will lose weight. That is always how that is going to work. So what we need to really figure out how to do is create that calorie deficit or surplus, right? That's going to be the trick. So the question here when it comes to nutrition and weight loss, and you can see, is we want to ask ourselves, what does the evidence show? You know, like what do we know about like weight loss? Now, one thing that I have to do here, I actually have to pull up the manual because unfortunately they don't put this in the PowerPoint slides. But if you guys flip to this chapter in your manual, in the very beginning, there's a really great little bit that talks about what the most effective amount of like, diet and exercise is, right? So we open this here, and I need to get to page 55. Okay. Oh, right. Okay, so here is kind of an interesting bit, right? Actually, I'll put this over here, and then I can zoom in, and you guys can kind of read along with me. Where is it? I gotta find the right little bit here. Oh, that's I went too far. It should be right in the beginning. Is it this chapter? I might maybe. Uh-oh. Oh, wait, was that? No, hold on. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to find this very, 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 very cool bit. I'm wondering now if it's actually coming up later in the thing. Nope. All right, we circled back. Oh. I'm gonna have to look that up later. I can look it up while we are watching this video. When we talk about like what the evidence shows and stuff, right? Like you can absolutely, guys, lose 1 pound, 2 pounds, like you lose 3 pounds a week if you're crazy, like it's possible to drop a substantial amount of weight very, very, very quickly. Now, when I say you lost like, let's say 3 pounds in a week, right? You might think that like body weight is the answer there, but the thing is like we don't really burn through our fat fast enough to be able to like make that big of a difference, right? Like that would need to be a 10,000 calorie deficit in 7 days time. And honestly, you burn way more than 10, you probably burn way more than 10,000 calories, consistently. Like if you're burning like, let's say 2,500 calories a day for 7 days, that's 17,000 calories. But the difference is, right, you need to have only 7,500 of that come up in your diet, right? So 7,500 divided by 7 days, you're eating about 1,000 calories a day. And you could drop that weight really quickly, right? But is it all going to be body fat? Probably not. What's going to end up happening is your body is going to go, holy cow, we are not getting enough calories. What I should do is figure out a way to burn less calories. Now, your body can't slow its metabolism down, which we've talked about as sort of a common myth. It's not going to slow down the rate at which your cells are like running or anything like that. But if it decides, okay, well, I need to get my calories from somewhere, I can tap into glycogen, I can tap into stored fat, or I can tap into muscle, actually. I can break the proteins in our muscle down and use that for energy. The more restricted your calorie intake is, the more likely your body is to go, well, I'm going to actually burn up that muscle for energy. Now, we've talked about this before. Your body doesn't prefer to run on protein. It's not its favorite thing to do, because what it'll do is just converts proteins into glucose and then uses them for energy, right? Which is a pretty inefficient process. Your body would much rather just use glucose directly or use fat directly. But using protein is sort of a roundabout process. And also it has a lot of byproducts, right? Increased urea and things like this. So what ends up happening when you have a super restricted calorie diet, let's say you eat 1,000 calories a day for a whole week, right? Is your body is going to tap through your glycogen really quickly. You're not bringing in enough energy to really support that. So you're going to run out of glycogen really fast. And that's going to explain a lot of your weight loss as well, because glycogen is stored in your muscles, it's stored in your liver, and it's this kind of wet, soupy carbohydrate that we store. So there's a lot of weight in it. So when you burn through all that, your water weight goes down really fast. So that'll help with the weight loss. didn't exactly help you with the fat loss, but it definitely helped with the weight loss. And then your body's going to go, all right, I'm out of glycogen. Where do I get the rest of my energy from? I can get it from long-term storage, which is fat, or I can get it from those biceps. I can get it from the quadriceps. I can get it from the glutes, the core muscles, whatever, right? And a lot of times your body in really severe restricted situations will choose muscle in order to preserve fat and preserve the rest of all of the stored energy that you have in your body. And the reason it does that is because like it knows that that is metabolically much more active tissue. It knows that muscle burns way more energy than any other types of tissue inside your body. So if it can tap into your muscle stores rather than tapping into your fat or carbohydrate stores, it's sort of balancing the budget a lot more effectively, right? It's like, you know, if you were in a sinking rowboat, you know, and you've got like some rations of food over here that weigh 20 pounds, but you've also got like, you know, a random, I don't know, stuffed animal that weigh, you know, a couple stuffed animals that weigh like 3 pounds, and your immediate concern is to just decrease the mass of that boat so that you can stay afloat. You know, unfortunately, the stuffed animals, they're not very functional. They don't do very much for you, but they also aren't going to help you if you get rid of them as much. So if you get rid of the heavy thing, that heavy like chunk of food over there, you're balancing that, but you are also sort of like making your life harder in the long run, you know, because now you have less food available. Does that make sense? It's kind of a weird, I don't know why that's the analogy that popped into my head, but that's the best way I could think to explain it. That's sort of what your body does, though. It'll get rid of this thing that is honestly very important simply because it burns the most energy. And right now we are having energy problems. So in a roundabout way, it does slow your metabolism down, but not in the way that people are sort of assuming. They think that, you know, your thyroid is slowing down. Like that's not really how it's working and stuff. So here's what we know. Here's what the evidence does show. A gradual weight loss program has been shown to be much more effective than a rapid weight loss program. So programs that are focusing on super extreme, very, 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 very fast results are often very difficult for your client to adhere to. And that often leads to, you know, falling back into old habits or just falling off the wagon, binge eating. It often leads to disordered eating. A lot of people like go on really intense crash diets and then they can develop really bad dietary habits for the rest of their life even. So we don't love crash diets. So now the question becomes, well, what's the appropriate amount of weight to lose per week, per month, per year? Like, what's the right number, you know? Because obviously we know that somebody who weighs 400 pounds can be a little bit more aggressive than somebody who's, you know, got 8% body fat, who's trying to get down to 6 for a bodybuilding competition, right? Like, those are gonna be very, very, very different scenarios. So here's what's recommended. The National Institute of Health is gonna recommend a 10% reduction in body weight over a 6-month period. That's going to come down to about 300 to 500 calories per day per person, depending on where you fall. So if you are a BMI range of like 27 to 35, right? Honestly, a 10% reduction in body weight over 6 months is going to be about a 1/2 to 1 pound a week situation. So if you were aiming for 1/2 of a pound a week, that's like 250 that's a 250 calorie deficit. If you're aiming for a full pound per week, that's a 500 calorie deficit per day, right? We know that because 3,500 calories in a pound of fat, right? Divided by 500 a day, that leaves you 7 days a week. There it is, right? 7 days times 500, 3,500 calories. So if you create a 500 calorie deficit, right? That can be from reducing your calorie intake by 250 calories and increasing your physical activity by 250 calories. You do both those things, there we go, right? That will result in about a 10% weight loss in 6 months. Now, it might be a little bit more aggressive in the beginning, and then it might slow down towards the end. But either way, that's what we're aiming for. We're going for about 10% every 6 months. Now, if your client has a BMI of above 35, so we're getting into like class 2 obesity here. If that's the case, they can do about a 500 to 1,000 calorie deficit. And that's going to be about 1 to 2 pounds of weight loss per week. but that's still only a 10% overall body weight loss in 6 months. So it's still a very like good amount for them. So this is where you cannot compare, you know, how many pounds you are losing per week to someone else, you know. Everybody's going to have like different body compositions. Everybody's going to have different starting points. And so like metabolically, those are all very different scenarios. So it doesn't make any sense for me to, you know, compare how fast I'm allowed to lose weight while still trying to maintain my muscle mass with someone who weighs, you know, 300 pounds, right? Those are two very, very different situations. Same thing is true of like muscle gain too, by the way, right? Like it goes in completely the opposite direction, right? You know, how fast can you expect to put on new muscle mass? Well, if you are new to training and you don't have very much muscle mass, you can expect to put it on relatively quickly. But if you've been doing this for a while, you're a trained individual who, you know, has been pushing themselves consistently in the gym, that means that you're going to gain muscle a little bit more slowly. There's a really great tip by Jeff Nippard. He's one of my favorite sort of physiologists on YouTube. He's a personal trainer, like bodybuilder guy, but he was an exercise physiology major and doctorate and all that. He may be biochemistry, actually. I may have misquoted. I'm not sure, but he's one of my favorite guys to watch. He does really good detailed breakdowns on certain things. But he talks about this fun way to sort of classify trained versus like untrained individuals, and it's based on progression. Like if you are continually adding weight to the bar consistently while you're in the gym, that actually shows that you are probably an untrained individual. Like if you're able to be like, you go into the gym, you lift 100 pounds, you get all sore for the week, you know, next week rolls around, you go back to the same exercise, you get to your last set and you're like, you know what, I think I can do 105. Pull the pin, go 105. The next week you come in, you're like, I feel really good. And like, you know, maybe not all 3 sets are going to 110, but like maybe 1 set is going to 110. And you're progressing pretty consistently. That is the sign of somebody who's relatively new to the gym. Their body is in adaptation overload. You know, it's just like, let's get strong, you know, like in the beginning, that works really well. When you're a little bit more of a trained lifter who's been doing it for a while, you know, it's just not quite as shocking to your body. So your body's not like, oh God, we're bad at this, we need to build muscle. It's just a little less aggressive about adaptation. And I think it's kind of fun. I think the same situation is sort of true of weight loss. So what we're looking for is a 10% reduction over a 6-month period. So that should be about 300 to 500 calories per day. Now that is what you are going to read in your book. That is what NASM recommends. I just realized I have my videos in the wrong order. There is another take on this though, that I really like, that Jeremy Ethier did a very good job of breaking down. So we're going to take a look at this.
Hey, Papas, it's cold outside.
Oh, what's up, Arlene? Is that your
Oh,
cat?
sorry. My cat wants me to open the door. Sorry. Let me argue with him in private.
That is so funny. It's cold out. That is incredible. Make sure I'm looking at the right video here. That's the one I watched. Yeah. Okay. Oop. Put it in the corner here. I'm gonna find that bit of wording that I was looking for. Okay. So this article here, by the way, if you guys want to read this, if you are interested in reading like what this video is sort of based on, this is the NCBI sort of article on it, and it talks about. Wait, actually, is it that one? Hold on, which one is it? Yeah. Oh, energy deficit weight loss. Is that what it is? Yeah. What is? Okay, there we go. So this is going to kind of give like a detailed breakdown. Both of these are really good. And he like, it's a long article, you know. I know it's a tough read sometimes, but really good stuff that kind of breaks down the actual like amount of weight you can lose while still maintaining muscle mass, because that's probably the goal, right? We're all trying to sort of redo our body composition.
When it comes to fat loss and even achieving a six-pack, most of us want results as fast as possible. In our eyes, the faster we can burn off our excess fat, the better, right? Well, not really. Because what most people don't realize is there's actually an upper limit as to how much fat you can lose every week. And if you try to push past this weekly limit by doing more cardio or eating even less, for example, then you'll now start to lose substantially more muscle instead of fat. Do this for months on end, which many people unfortunately do, and you'll eventually end up with a skinny fat physique with too little muscle and still too much fat. So now the real question becomes, what's the most amount of fat you can lose per week while minimizing muscle loss in the process? As this is going to better enable you to attain the lean, muscular physique you're after instead of just winding up skinny fat. And to answer this question, we'll use the findings of a 2005 paper by researcher Dr. Alpert, who analyzed several fat loss studies in an attempt to quantify the maximum amount of fat one can lose per day without excessive muscle loss. What he found is that the body is capable of burning body fat to use for energy at a maximum rate of 31 calories per pound of body fat per day. Once you exceed this rate, the body then has to tap into your muscle mass in order to make up for its energy needs. And although the study is theoretical and does have its limitations, when you crank out the numbers, they actually align well with both past research on the topic and with my own experience as a coach as well. But to put this theory into perspective for you, let's use an example. Let's say John weighs 200 pounds and is at 20% body fat. Multiply these two numbers and we can determine that John has 40 pounds of body fat. Multiply this by the maximum rate I mentioned earlier of 31 calories per pound of body fat, and we get 1240 calories. This represents the maximum daily calorie deficit John should employ every day to maximize fat loss while minimizing muscle loss. And to find out what this would equate to in terms of pounds of fat loss per week, we can multiply this number by 7 to represent a week, and then divide it by 3500, since we know that this is roughly what 1 pound of fat is equivalent to. And as you can see, we end up with 2.5 pounds, which represents the theoretical maximum amount of fat John could lose per week while minimizing muscle loss. Whereas on the contrary, if you're a leaner individual like Jimmy here who weighs 170 pounds and is at 15% body fat, then in this case, he'd only be carrying around 26 pounds of fat, and therefore his theoretical maximum rate of weekly fat loss would be just 1.6 pounds per week. So as you can see, as you get leaner, the maximum amount of fat your body is able to lose per week reduces, which is something that other papers have found to be true as well. So now that we've covered what the maximum rate of fat loss is per week, how can you now go put this into practice? Well, if you're truly seeking to lose fat as fast as humanly possible, then here's what you do. First, find out what the maximum daily calorie deficit and weekly fat loss number would be for you using the process I outlined earlier. And then, to achieve this daily deficit, you would use a combination of eating below your TDEE or maintenance calories, performing regular resistance training, and throwing in additional cardio. And then you simply monitor your body weight throughout the weeks and try to hit your target maximum weekly fat loss number. Then as you progress and your body fat continues to decrease, you'd want to slow down your rate of fat loss to minimize muscle loss by again recalculating what your maximum weekly fat loss number would be at your new weight and your new body fat percentage. So over time, the rate at which you lose weight should slow down. And basically that's all there is to it. But with all that being said, I do want to provide some precautions. First of all, keep in mind that this protocol is a very aggressive approach that employs a fairly large calorie deficit, high activity, and a fast rate of weight loss. For some who are more experienced, this may be completely doable, but for most people, especially those just starting out with their fat loss journey, it's just unrealistic and very difficult to adhere to, and you'd be much better off taking a longer, less aggressive approach that you'd be more likely to stick with. Second of all, as researcher Dr. Alpert points out, even if you're under this 31 calorie per pound limit I outlined earlier, it doesn't mean that you won't lose muscle mass. It simply represents a threshold value past which the rate of muscle loss starts to become exponentially large. So if you're truly seeking to maintain as much muscle mass as possible or even build muscle while losing fat, then again, a less aggressive deficit would be best. But all in all, if you get motivated by seeing results fast and can adhere to a tough protocol, then by all means go for it. Otherwise, taking a slow and steady approach and making positive, long-lasting changes to your lifestyle is what I'd personally recommend, as that's more often than not what's going to deliver you the best results in the long term.
I hope you all enjoyed the video, but just remember guys that fat loss is often a long journey, and the last thing you want to do is just rush into it aimlessly and sacrifice all your hard-earned muscle as a result. That's exactly why within my Built with Science programs,
so that is sort of that's a very different approach, right? So what you would do is you would calculate out like your amount of body fat and then multiply that by 31, right? And that's going to be your calorie deficit. So if we've got a 200-pound person, right, and they've got, let's say 30% body fat, right? So times 0.3, that means they have 60 pounds of fat on their body. Multiply that by 31. That's going to be a weekly deficit, or a deficit of 1,860, which is going to be about 3.72 pounds lost. That's pretty substantial, actually, because that person has a really high body fat percentage for only being 200 pounds. Most commonly, it's not going to be quite that high, but that's how we sort of calculate that out. That is the maximum. Now, that does not mean you're not going to lose muscle mass, right? Like he says in the video, which is not something that is helpful, in the long run. Like, so I'm not saying like that, really aggressive fat loss diets don't exist. They're definitely out there, and they've been observed, and people have done it in very rapid, rapid places, right? I just don't want us to necessarily commit to thinking that that is the best way to do this. It's sort of like the fat burning zone, right? Do you guys remember we talked about the fat burning zone, where people think that they're only burning fat because that's the whole goal, right? But what the fat burning zone actually is you're always burning like a blend of fat and carbohydrates for fuel. And when you are sleeping, you are burning nothing but fat. And when you are sprinting, you're burning nothing but carbs. So this is like minimal effort. This is maximal effort here. So the fat burning zone is right here. It's right before they switch, right? And so like, as you're like doing like a full on sprint, you're pretty much only burning carbs because you're using all of the muscle necessary to kind of propel your body forward. So that's a big misinterpretation, right? It's like, oh, I'm burning 51% of my energy from fat. That's the fat burning zone. This weight loss range is like, yeah, that's the maximum amount of fat you're going to lose. It doesn't mean you're going to lose muscle. But if you do go any more aggressive than that, the muscle uptake, the muscle like burning increases like pretty exponentially. Does that make sense to everybody? Everybody cover that pretty well? Sort of a different approach. Hopefully you guys are with me. Our recommendations generally are going to be to create a 300 to 500 calorie deficit. So we're going to use 5 as an example today because it's easy to sort of calculate that out to 1 pound per week. So we don't want to engage in an overly restrictive calorie program because that can often result in meals that are nutritionally like deficient. One of my biggest problems with like low calorie diets, and one of the reasons why I never take any of my clients below like 1,500 calories per day. On occasionally I will. Like if I've got a client who's very short and already like pretty close to their goal, yeah, maybe my calories will come, closer to about 1,500 for that person. But generally I don't go below 2,000 for my male clients, and I don't go below 1,500 for my female clients. In very, very rare situations have I done that. And by rare, I mean, honestly, I can think of like maybe like 2 times. I had a girl who was doing her first bodybuilding competition. And that's honestly about it. So the reason we don't take them super low is because like it's just very easy to be like nutritionally deficient, right? So let's say here's like a really good example, right? Let's say you get a client on like a 1,500 calorie diet, okay? And so, but they're really good about sticking to their diet, right? Like the problem is not at all with them on this diet. They do not have a problem with overeating. They've got, you know, the most willpower out of any human being on the planet. They are sticking to this diet perfectly. So let's say they stick to your diet perfectly, right? But they do one thing that wasn't really part of the plan, but nutritionally and calorically is a perfect swap. So let's say they go into work and let's say they go into work and, you know, it's someone's birthday and they've got one of these like little mini cupcakes here, right? And it's going to have 131 calories in it. Now, this person on a 1,500 calorie diet, 131 calories isn't really going to harm them that much. But remember, like this person has an iron amount of willpower. So what she does is, or what they do is they are going to subtract 131 calories from somewhere else. Well, let's take a look at we take a look at an apple here. And let's say, you know, she's doing like a large apple, right? So part of a snack later on in the day was like an apple, which was 116 calories. So what she does is she's like, oh, well, you know what? Those are nutritionally very, very similar calorically. So what I'm going to do is I had that cupcake earlier because it was so-and-so's birthday. So I'm just going to lose the apple for today, right? All right. So that also doesn't really sound like that big a deal. But here's the thing. Look at the vitamin and mineral content of these two different foods, right? This is basically a nutritionally bankrupt food. It doesn't really have anything to offer other than calories, right? Maybe it's got, you know, a little bit of vitamins here and there, you know, like there's probably some milk in the cupcake batter or something, you know, maybe some eggs that are in there, a little bit of protein, but like nothing to really write home about. So now 131 calories, right? Divided by like 1,500, right? It's not a huge amount, but that's 8.7% of the total amount of like energy consumed that day. That's 8.7% of this person's calories, relatively close to 10%. So when you think about it, it's like you just lost out on 10% of your opportunities for the day to get enough vitamin C, to get enough fiber, to get enough, you know, calcium. Right? Like that's the issue with overly restrictive diet programs, right? They, you know, you can stick to them. If you've got an iron willpower and you can just do it, that's fine. But nutritionally, you will probably be deficient. It does often result in a loss of lean body mass. And that's true of any part, even the program I just showed you where it's like, hey, you want to be more aggressive, you can, here's how. You know, that's often going to result in lean body mass loss, which does make things harder overall in the long run. Like I said, it's associated with disordered eating. And it often results in weight gain once the program is over because the habit is sort of broken there. Like you know, people will often sort of like fall off the wagon and binge back the other way. So we're going to take Nassim's approach. We are going to go with the idea of like a 300 up to maybe 500 calorie deficit with our target calories, right? So what we're going to do is we first need to figure out what our clients like target calories are and what their target macronutrients are. So we're going to make sort of a fake client off here to the side. I want to try and pick a different example. I've got examples actually over here, but I want to make like a new one. Any of you guys at home, by the way, if you want to take a second, go get a piece of scratch paper and you want to like run your own numbers, guys, and you can follow along with me. Feel free. This is going to be pretty helpful. You know what? I'll do it in Paint actually. That'll be very easy to actually see because then I can color coordinate. All right. So first things, so we're going to figure out our target calories, right? So our target calories, first thing we need to do is we need to figure out who our client is and what their lifestyle sort of looks like, right? So here we need to lay out sort of like what all of our overall goals are, right? So overall goals are going to be to make sure that we get the appropriate number of calories, the appropriate amount of protein, the appropriate amount of carbs, and the appropriate amount of fat. So there are sort of two approaches here. There's the Amdr method, which honestly, guys, this is a little bit simpler but often is very, very effective. And basically what you do is you figure out what your target calories are, and then you multiply it by 10 to 35% for your protein intake, 45 to 65% for your carb intake, and 20 to 35% for your fat intake. So if we went with, let's say, we went with an AMD, a target calories of, let's say we got a client. Let's make a client here. So we go to BMR calculator. If you guys want to figure out your target calories, you can do this right now. Go to BMR calculator. It's here on calculator.net. Punch in your statistics. So we'll do me. I'm 33, male, 6'0" / 6'1", somewhere in there. And then body weight of 175 pounds. Hit calculate. So I burn about 1,793 calories a day by existing, right? And then I exercise, Mondays, I lift Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and I play Ultimate on Wednesdays and Saturdays. So that's exercise pretty daily, right? So we'll say daily exercise or intense exercise, right? So that's going to put me at about 2,779 calories. So my target calories is 2,700. Actually, let me move this down. So my maintenance calories are 2,700. $2,779. Okay, so there we go. Now I've got my maintenance calories, right? But I want to know my target calories. My target calories is the valuable one. So we'll put that in red here because that's the one that's going to be most important. So let's say, guys, for the sake of argument, I want to lose 1 pound per week. Okay, so I need to create a calorie deficit of 500 calories. Okay, I need a 500 calorie deficit every day for 7 days a week, right? So 500 times 7, 3,500 calories. There's 3,500 calories in a pound of fat. So it's going to be my maintenance calories, that 2,779 minus 500. So we're going to go 2,779 minus 500. That gives me 2,279. So that's going to result in 1 pound of weight loss per week. So there we go, right? That's my, that's where we're at. We're at 2,779 is my target. So now all I need to do is figure out how much of that should be protein, how much of that should be carbs, and how much of that should be fat. So if I want to, I can do the Amdr method, right? I can just use the acceptable macronutrient distribution ranges, right? That's going to be 10 to 35% coming from protein, 45 to 65% carbs, 20 to 35% fats. So here, if I go Amdr method, we'll go back to that color there. So we're going to go Amdr method for macronutrients. Well, that's going to look like this, right? We're going to pick, let's go 30% protein. So we're going to say protein, and we're going to go 30% here, right? Equals, we'll figure that out in a second. We're going to go carbs is going to be 40. Let's go with, let's go with 45%. Equals, all right, so that is 75% there. That leaves me 25% fat. So we'll go fats. And we're going to go with 75%. We're going to go with 25%. Oh my God, where are you? So now we've got our percentages. It's actually pretty easy. All we have to do is figure out how many calories that is. So we take 2,279, because that's my target, right? Not my maintenance calories, my target calories. So I take 2,279, and I'm going to multiply that by 0.3. That's 30% for protein. So 2,279 times 0.3, that's 683.7 calories from protein. So we're going to see 683.7. We're going to round that up to 684. 684 calories, which will be now. How many calories are in 1 gram of protein, guys? Who knows? Pop quiz. How many calories are in 1 gram of protein?
4.
4, right? So we take 684 divided by 4. That's going to give me 171 grams of protein, which, look at that. That is really close to what I would recommend, right? So that's 171 grams per day. So now we go down to our carbs here. We go 45% of 2279 times 0.45. That's going to give me 1,025.55 per day. So we'll round that up to 1,026. Edwin, I won't do it to you again, but 1,026 divided by how many calories in 1 gram of carbohydrates? It is also 4 calories. So we divide that by, so actually that's 1,026 calories slash divided by 4, 256. We'll round that to 257 grams per day, right? And then lastly, we've got our fat, 2279 times, we wanted 25%. So we're going to go 0.25. That gives me 569 calories, which we will round to 570, which will actually come out to, divided by, there are 9 calories in every gram of fat. So that's going to be about 63 grams of fat. And that's the AMDR method, right? Can I change the color of just that? I can. Haha. So there's the AMDR method, right? 684 calories of protein, which comes out to 171 grams per day, 257 grams of carbohydrates, and 63 grams of fat. We can check our math here to make sure that I got all this right by actually using the same website, just slightly different. If we go to macro calculator, it is also on calculator.net. And so we figure out, we're going to go with the exercise there, which was that 33, 6'1", 175, right? And the goal is weight loss of 1 pound per week. Hit calculate. Now, on a super balanced proteins, fats, and carbs, you can see it's 139, 304, 65. They went with slightly different numbers there, right? I could go with low fat, I can go with low carb, I can go with high protein. What we're going to do is we're going to create our own, right? Oh, it doesn't have the percentages listed. So you guys, all right. So we said 161. No, 171. 171 grams of protein, 257 grams of carbs. That leaves us with 70 grams of fat. I came up with ever so slightly different numbers than I did. 171, 257. Huh. Let me check my math here. Oh yeah, actually, I guess because I rounded up a couple times. So I rounded up a couple times, which brought my calories up ever so slightly to 2,342. All that rounding shifted my numbers ever so slightly, rather than leaving it directly at 2279. So I lost a little bit of fat in, or I gained a little bit of extra fat in my diet plan here. But that's sort of what how that all comes out in the end, right? Like this is what we're looking at into like calorically. We are looking at doing this in the AMDR method. Now that's good. And it is like, honestly, this is pretty darn good. You know, like I think this is great. It's just below 1 gram of protein per pound, which if you want to do 1 gram per pound, It's actually fine. You're probably not really risking your health too much. Any higher than that, I'm not a huge fan. But this worked out really well, you know, numbers wise. But sometimes you do protein at 30%, you're bringing in like 200, 250 grams of protein. Again, that could be fine, but it can also result in increased urea production and, you know, increase your acidity and stuff. So that's one method. We've got the Amdr method here. Okay. Now, another method for calculating out your, you know, calories and stuff is you're going to keep it the same way. You're still going to have like the same target calories, but we're just going to go with a slightly more complex method. We're going to go with the NASM approach to macronutrients, which is so darn close, guys. It's really not that much different. The difference is you are going to base your protein intake directly on your client, okay? So what I mean is rather than just saying protein is 10 to 35% and picking a number within there, you're actually going to base it on their body weight and what type of athlete they are. So if it's me, I would argue that I would fall under the strength athlete category because I do 4 days of strength training per week. So that's going to be 1.2 to 1.7 grams per kilogram of body weight, or 0.5 to 0.8 grams per pound. So I get to choose within there. So here we're going to do it a little bit differently. Instead, our protein is going to be 0.8 grams per pound of body weight. And that's going to come out to, if I weigh 175 pounds times 0.8, that's 140 grams of protein. So according to NASM, which 140 times 4, that's 560 calories. So according to NASM, the other version up here is a little bit too protein rich for their take, you know, just slightly. It's not a huge difference, you know, 30 grams per day. That's literally a protein shake per day, you know. But in NASM's opinion, it's a little bit more. So it might get increased performance by, you know, having a little bit more fat or maybe a little bit more carbohydrates in my diet. And what's great about this is the rest of what I do, all I have to do to figure out my carbs and fat intake is I get to just choose those numbers, and then I get to use whatever's left, you know. So now let's do carbohydrates, right? So let's say I want to raise this up, you know, because I've got like a little bit less protein here, I can go a little bit more aggressive on the carbohydrates. Let's say I go with 50%, right? So I'm going to choose 50%. And that's going to come out to 2279 times 0.5, right? That's 1,139. We'll round that to 1,140 calories, which is going to be 285 grams per day. Right, so that's 50% there. And then my fats. Now, what I need to do is I need to figure out how many calories are left in my diet, and that will sort of determine it, right? So I go 2279 minus, I took 560 calories from protein, and then minus 1140 from carbohydrates. That leaves me with 579 calories for fat, which is going to be about 25% again. I think it'll be 26% if I'm not mistaken. 579. So that's going to be 579 calories slash, do we divide that by 9? 64 grams per day. And that 579 divided by 2 is 20, yeah, 25% still actually. Wasn't enough to raise it. So then 560 divided by 27, that's 25% still. So a little bit more complicated here, but look at the minor differences between these two. Like you can tell that NASM appreciates a little bit more of the energy stuff. It doesn't need quite as much protein. It's just doing it in a slightly different method. Which method's better? I don't know. I don't think it necessarily works that way, right? I think that like if you are training someone and you're tracking their weight and you've been training them for 2, 3, 4 weeks and they're not getting the results that you sort of wanted to get, I think that maybe trying one method or the other could be the difference, right? That's where we're going to get that. So take a look here, and this is important to remember, guys. You know, should you decrease carbohydrates? Should you decrease fat? Should you decrease protein, right? Which one's the best? Which one's the best way to do your calories? Well, it doesn't really work that way. There is no consensus in the scientific community between one macro range and another. You know, you'll hear keto people say, no, keto's the best. It's 75% fat, 20% protein, only 5% carbs. You don't need carbs. Carbs are, you know, causing all of our health problems. That has been certainly observed. And I believe that people who are sticking to a keto diet firmly believe it. And I'm sure that they have had success. I have no problem with that. But to say that it is generally better for everyone, I think that that is inaccurate. There's no consensus out there. You know, it's very difficult to study all of humanity and look at their protein, carb, and fat intake, right? So currently there's no real consensus. I think what's going to work is what you're going to try out with your clients. And I think what works is what works. You know, I know that's not the best answer in the world, but you know, you're gonna try it different things with your clients and see how it comes out. Anybody have any questions on that? Did anybody try to calculate their numbers in the background while they were doing this? Is it, you know, I want you guys to be able to kind of, for anybody out there at home who's trying to do this yourself, like I want you guys to feel like you can leave today and do this on your own. Anybody have any questions?
No, but I was getting into like the body fat percentage, so I started playing with that part of the calculator.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah. Do you have a body fat tester, body fat percentage scale at home?
No, I don't. That's what I was stuck on, so I couldn't really do the numbers because you know how it also requires your body fat.
Yeah. So this calculator here doesn't necessarily have to require it, but it can be the more accurate of the two. So if you go to that BMR calculator, click settings, this Catch-McCardle formula down here, once you know your body fat percentage, really creates some like substantial differences in the numbers, which is really nice. And that's another thing, right? Not every calculator is created equal, guys. The real thing that's going to happen is you're going to end up working with somebody and there are going to be like, you know, goofs and errors here and there. You know, you're going to be working with them for a couple weeks and it's not going to work. And you're like, what is the deal? Why wasn't this effective today? You know? So we have to make small adjustments. We have to know how to course correct. And I think that's where being able to do this, you know, very quickly becomes kind of easier. By the way, all of this that I did today, all this math stuff, if you want to do the NASM approach, if you get NASM's Edge app, they'll actually do this for you. You can do it on the website as well. NASM actually has a macro calculator, calorie calculator. It's just, I don't know. It's kind of clunky on the website. You can see here, if I punch that, we put that, right? And let's say I want to lose 10 pounds, right? And I've got a unreachable. Oh, goal weight, 165, right? Let's say I want to get down to 165 and I'm going to give myself, you know, if we say 1 pound a week, you know, that's going to be 10 weeks, right? That's 70 days. So if I give myself 70 days to do that, then by April 19th, I should meet my goal. I hit next, and there we go. Now I can slide these around: 30% protein, 40% carbs, 30% fat. That's a pretty well-balanced diet there. Maybe I want to like up the carbohydrate intake a little bit. What'll happen is that'll actually, it's not letting me go any higher. That's interesting. That's so weird. Well, let me raise the, oh, I guess I have to drop this down. Okay. That's interesting. So yeah, again, it's clunky. So anyway, you can shift these numbers around a little bit if you want to, like, no, I want to be on high fat, you know. You can do it however you personally prefer to do it. But then you hit calculate and it'll show sort of like what your body weight should be over the course of, like, you know, your goal and stuff. And so there's your basal metabolic rate. There's your total daily energy expenditure, as long as you keep to it. If you eat 2,555 calories per day, you'll meet your goal. And so, and what's great is you can export this, you know, and there you go. Print that out for your client, adjust it as they're going through their routine, and you know, you can track their progress and stuff. And here's all this is all the explanation on how they did this, right? So NASM's got their approach on the website. They've got it in the app. It is very easy to do. But just to kind of show you one more time how these numbers look out, the idea is that there's just a general reduction in calories. So let's take a look at two different clients in two different scenarios. They're both 200 pounds, right? They're both strength athletes, but currently client number 1 is on a 2,000 calorie diet and client number 2 is on a 2,500 calorie diet. So this person over here isn't really looking to lose weight. This person's eating at maintenance. This person over, or maybe just a slight caloric reduction. This person over here is on a much more extreme caloric reduction, right? So because they're both strength athletes, their protein intake is actually going to be the same, right? It's 0.7 grams per pound of body weight. That's going to come out to 140 grams for both 200-pound clients at a time. Their carb intake was also 45% for both of them, but 45% of a 2,000 calorie diet is going to be less than 45% of a 2,500 calorie diet. So that's 225 grams over here, 281 grams over here. And then we used our fat to fill out whatever was left. In the client who's eating only 2,000 calories, they're going to have a remaining 27% of their calories. That can be about 60 grams of fat. This person's only getting 23%, but because their calories are so much higher, that's 91 grams of fat. So these are two very different scenarios that you're going to see in the notes. But both can be very effective. It just depends on, like, you know, who your client is and what their overall goals are, right? So when you ask yourself, should I decrease the carbohydrates or should I decrease the fat? Because we know we need to get enough protein, right? So should we do this or should we do that? It doesn't really matter, guys. Like, low fat diets used to be all the rage back in the day. You know, honestly, before I got into the fitness industry, low fat diets were all the craze. That's why there's still so much low fat food out there, you know, which is often packed full of sugar because food companies are trying to find a way to make something taste good, you know? So, and that didn't necessarily work any better than any other diet. So low fat wasn't the answer. But what about low carbs, right? We did low carbohydrate diets, and that's kind of where we're in now. We're in the middle of the keto craze. I do think it's actually slowly dying off. But then again, I haven't been in like a regular gym in a while because I just train, you know, I train out of my house and stuff. So I don't hear the gossip that I used to hear, but I think keto is slowly disappearing just a little bit. Used to hear about it all the time, but then again, all we hear about now is coronavirus anyways. So I don't know. So should you decrease your carbohydrate intake? Is that better? Not necessarily. I think that, like, you know, there's not a lot of evidence to suggest one is better than the other, but you know, what we do know is effective are some general nutrition tips, right? So that's what I wanted to show you here. One more little video real quick. This is some general tips on, like, which diets are the most effective, right? That's the question. It's like, which diet's the best? And this is going to kind of break down and show you why that's kind of a flawed question.
There are a lot of popular diets out there, so we thought we'd create a simple video investigating which ones are scientifically sound and actually work. From the outside, it seems like a simple equation. Your weight is determined by the balance between the calories you take in and the calories you burn. By changing what you eat or your activity level, you can tip this equation towards weight gain or loss, which brings us to our first category of diets: calorie restriction. Companies like Weight Watchers claim you can eat whatever you want as long as you stay below a prescribed number of
of daily calories. Getting all your calories from junk food is technically allowed, but from a health perspective, it's important to think about the nutritional value of the foods too. If you don't, you risk heart problems, nutrient deficiencies, and chronic health issues. Calorie restriction with optimal nutrition or CRON diets generally reduce their caloric intake by 20% while still meeting the daily nutritional requirements. For example, instead of having a whole apple, a CRON dieter might just have the apple skin, which contains most of the nutrients. If used properly and not excessively, calorie restriction can be a safe and effective tool for weight loss. Next up is carb restriction. Many diets like the South Beach, Atkins, or Zone diet suggest that carbs are the enemy of the fit body you've always dreamed of. The ideology claims that when more carbs are taken in than burned off, the liver converts them into fats. But for most healthy, reasonably active people, carbs are broken down to glucose and transported to the cells for energy. Very little is actually turned into fat. In response to excessive glucose, the body uses insulin to turn it into glycogen, which is stored in the liver and muscles. This glycogen may later be broken down in times of low glucose to refuel the body. But the type of carbs you eat do matter. Those from simple sugars like honey, fruit, or sugar are more readily turned into triglycerides or fat than complex carbs like whole grains and veggies. If you consistently eat way more than necessary, and most calories are from simple carbs, then these will be converted to fat. Low-carb diets often have extreme restriction at first. No starches like bread or pasta, and no sugars including from fruits or even alcohol. This can lead to some intense side effects including constipation, dry mouth, bad breath, fatigue, dizziness, and nausea. In studies, carb restriction dieters tend to lose weight faster initially compared to those simply using calorie restriction, but this is likely due to water loss, which returns in later phases when you're encouraged to eat normally again. On top of this, the Atkins diet, for example, promotes caloric intake from high-fat and high-protein sources, which means meats, cheeses, cream, butter, and losing weight? Sounds pretty good, right? But many doctors show concerns over the high intake of saturated fat that it may lead to more bad cholesterol and therefore an increased risk of heart disease. Some claim these diets are dangerous and unhealthy given that they promote the limitation of foods like carrots, sweet potatoes, or apples that provide the body with important micronutrients and vitamins. Instead, people require supplements, which the body is not able to absorb as effectively as vitamins, minerals, and micronutrients in whole foods. Then there are high-protein diets. The main principle is that protein-rich foods are not as easily broken down by the body and take more energy to digest than carb-rich food. This means you won't feel hungry again as quickly, and you're more likely to run a caloric deficit than if you ate the same number of calories from carbs. The paleo diet, for example, suggests that 10,000 years ago agriculture was introduced, and the human diet changed from hunter-gatherers eating primarily meat, wild fruits, veggies, and nuts to diets containing more grains. And as a result, some believe the human body isn't designed to digest these processed foods like grains, dairy, and breads. Some also believe that grains lead to inflammation-related health problems, but this is largely untrue except in the case of people with celiac disease. But because of its straightforward guidelines, many find it easy to follow, and it does promote more nutrient absorption. However, as paleo cuts out all grains and legumes, we lose an important source of dietary fiber necessary to keep our bowels running smoothly. Not to mention, the high protein leads to nitrogen production, meaning stinky farts. Add to that constipation, which allows your digested material to sit longer in the large intestine and continuing to decompose, and yep, even smellier farts. There's another class of diets we might call the just stop eating diets. Those looking to get slim quick might be tempted to only eat cabbage soup for 7 days, or do the master cleanse diet, which only allows salt water in the morning and a concoction of water, maple syrup, lemon, and cayenne pepper through the day, and a laxative tea at night. But these diets are exceptionally unhealthy. Not only is most of your weight loss from water weight, but there are many side effects such as dizziness, fatigue, dehydration, and nausea. The master cleanse can even lead to a white tongue, which some claim is the toxins leaving your body, but it's actually due to swelling and a yeast infection of the mouth. And after going through all that, you're likely to gain any weight lost after stopping. Then of course there are straight up crazy diets like eating cotton balls dipped in soup or juice so that you feel full, which of course provides hardly any nutritional content and can cause intestinal blockages which require surgical intervention. Or how about the sleeping beauty diet where you just sleep? You can't eat if you're always asleep. The truth is, most diets focusing on quick, dramatic results also have a yo-yo effect where you lose initial weight but slow down your metabolic rate so your body starts burning less calories. And then when you start eating again, there's all the weight back and often more. After following contestants from the show The Biggest Loser for 6 years, some of which who had lost hundreds of pounds in those 7 months, scientists noticed something interesting. Not only did most of the participants in the study regain their weight, but their metabolic rates changed. One man in particular now burns 800 fewer calories a day than would be expected for a man his size. This is 6 years after leaving the show, showing how extreme measures to lose weight, while they may be successful at the time, have long-lasting impacts on your metabolism, making it harder to keep off weight in the future. The hard truth is that even using many of the principled diets, about 97% of people regain everything lost and sometimes more within 3 years. If you want to lose weight, finding a diet that works for you and keeps you motivated with small incremental changes is important. Of course, a number on a scale doesn't measure how healthy a person is, though many struggle with this perception. If food and weight preoccupations are a problem for you or someone you know, check out the description of this video for links with more information. And subscribe for more weekly science videos.
Okay. So, which diet's best, guys? I don't know. I do know that the Cotton Ball and Sleeping Beauty and Go Mad and Master Cleanse and Grapefruit and all of those diets are terrible. And that I can say black and white. But you know, is it better to go keto? Is it better to go carnivore? Is it better to go Atkins, classic AMDR balance? I don't know. I think that, like, as long as you're getting the right nutrients in and, you know, are feeling healthy. I mean, like, keto is incredible for people who have like epilepsy. That's how it was discovered. Like, they were looking at a way, you know, with excessive ketones in the blood can actually sort of interrupt epileptic seizures. So that's how they discovered it. They were trying to like figure out how to like solve that problem. So if you have epilepsy, go for it. Keto it up, you know, like big fan. But to use it for weight loss and to say that it's superior, I don't know, you know. I think that like a diet that's rich in nutrients, that is also effective in the long term is what's important. So again, we are going to look at nutrient density, right? This is the difference between like nutrient density and energy density, right? So nutrient density, which again is distinct from energy, is the idea that like you are getting lots of micronutrients in your food. You know, last night for dinner, we had these, I don't know if anybody here is like a Trader Joe's person, but they have these like carrot coins. They have this like frozen bag of like, you know, carrots like this. And it's funny, whenever, you know, I eat something like this, I'm always like a little pleased at the fact that like there's purple carrots in there, which I didn't even know was a thing when I was a kid. But what's great about that is like it has probably more phytochemicals in it because it's got this bright, rich color, you know. That means that like with all those phytochemicals, I'm probably getting more vitamins, more minerals and things like that, rather than your classic like baby carrots, which are all orange. And honestly, that's actually pretty colorful. They're full of beta carotene, you know, and definitely versus, you know, like something processed that, you know, pulls all the color and maybe dyes it back in, you know, like that's like, you know, you think about like sugar naturally looks like this. It's, you know, it's this dark kind of rich brownish color, right? But like what we do is we process the crap out of it and they bleach it, which makes it much easier to dissolve in like hot liquids. So the advantage there is it gets dissolved into your coffee much faster. You don't have to stir it as often. But it loses even the tiny bits of nutrients that, you know, sugar is going to have. And let's be honest, guys, you shouldn't be getting your nutrients from sugar, but like, hey, it is, you know, it's one little bit of color there.
Hey, Brad, sorry.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Question.
Is that what the sugar in the raw thing was that they used to make? I don't know if they still make it.
So sugar in the raw, yeah, it's just sugar cane that's been beat up and is sort of in its natural case. You can just get turbinado sugar. That's what that is. It's sugar in the raw is the same thing. So you're just getting natural, regular old sugar and stuff. It's white sugar that's the problem. I mean, honestly, it's still sugar. But yeah, you want to avoid like, bleached and stuff. But yeah, like sugar in the raw, or agave, any of those things. The amount of sugar found in that stuff is all the same, but we do know that it's been through less processes. So it might have a mineral or two that you wouldn't be getting. And that's a small little tiny choice that can, sort of help. But we're paying attention to our DRIs, right? We are trying to get our dietary reference intakes to the right amount. We are trying to get plenty of proteins, fats, carbs, vitamins, minerals, and water into our diet, right? So the AMDR method, right, which we looked at a little bit ago, is where we see 10 to 35% protein, 20 to 35% fat, and 45 to 65% carbohydrates. So that is where we're going to choose nutrient-dense food. So here's a hot dog, right? This is we got a hot dog here in the slides. One hot dog, about 8 ounces, is going to have 33 grams of fat, 46 grams of carbs. So this is a hot dog with the bun, right? Of that bun, there's 2 grams of fiber in there. So, it's not terrible. And 24 grams of protein. So you look at this and it's like, well, that's a relatively balanced food. You're getting 297 calories from fat, 181 calories from carbs, and 96 calories from protein. If we put that into a pie chart, yeah, there's about like 3 times as much fat as there is protein in it, and about 2 times as much carbs as there is protein in it. So you probably have a pie chart that would be 1/2 fat, so it'd be like 50% fat, and then like the remaining 30% would be carbohydrates, and the final 20% would be protein. It's not great, like it's not super ideal, but it's not terrible either. But here's the real problem there. Here's where this is like very bad for us. Number one, it's got 2 grams of trans fat in it. Trans fat, horrible for us. Not only is it just a bad fat, it also destroys our good fat. Number 2, it's only got 2 grams of fiber. It's not very much, 9 versus 9 grams of sugar. And then it's probably full of, low density cholesterol. So we see about 80 milligrams of cholesterol. Most of this is coming from saturated and trans fat. So we know that that's probably going to be pretty bad cholesterol coming in. And how many vitamins or minerals do you think are going to be in that hot dog? Not very many. Probably some B vitamins. It's pork, right, which is rich in B vitamins. But vitamins A, D, E, and K, which are our antioxidants. A lot of minerals, which are also antioxidants, but also very important for like certain body structures. Nutritionally bankrupt is the term I like to use. So that's a very good example of something that is calorically dense without being nutrient dense, right? And this is where you can look at the difference between like, what does 200 calories look like? This is where you can say, like, the conversation is not just always about calories, right? So take a look. Here are some examples of 200 calorie foods, right? So there's a 200 calorie hot dog, 200 calories with a hot dog, 200 calories of Hershey's Kisses, gummy bears. I'm assuming those are M&Ms. Yeah. No, wait, no, green Skittles. Probably like turkey or something. Look at the freaking carrots. Like, look at the apples, look at the broccoli. Like, that is going to take forever to eat, right? Especially if you don't like broccoli. Like, that's a very different look for 200 calories. You can get about 3 eggs in, which is a good source of protein and minerals. Canned chili, apparently, and that's actually pretty low, because most of that is probably like beans and stuff, which are low. Strawberry yogurt, balsamic vinegar. It's a glass of vinegar. It actually, here's the thing. And by the way, it doesn't just mean like, we're not just looking for eating lots. Look at the Coca-Cola, right? Look at a glass of milk. This is 200 calories of whole milk. And look at Coca-Cola. There's definitely more, to drink with the Coca-Cola. So now that might be making you think, oh, well, then this is healthier than this. Definitely not, right? This is going to have nutrients in it, whereas this doesn't. Yeah, you do get less of this. Right? Which kind of yeah, question?
Sound like somebody was whispering. Hey,
yeah.
So you know, with these vegetables and all that, like obviously they're like nutriently dense, right? But like how big is the gap versus like saying, all right, I'm gonna eat a bunch of veggies or I'm just gonna eat some brown rice with chicken, right? Like how big is the gap of nutrient where it like actually makes it worth it?
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So here's the thing. I mean, the gap would be huge because the nutrients that are found in brown rice and like chicken are just going to be different nutrients than found in, like, let's say you have broccoli in there, right? So like if we look at like nutrients found in broccoli, right? You're going to see that it's really rich in all of these nutrients here, right? And not super rich. I mean, like you can see for manganese, it's only got 8% in there. It's not huge or anything. Phosphorus is pretty low, right? So there we go. So now let's take a look at chicken, nutrients found in like chicken. Let's open that up. And then what was the last? Brown rice?
Yeah, like for example, like because I know we were talking the other day, like, you know, like all these meats and they have like a bunch of like vitamins and amino acids and like, you know, beans and rice. And so like I'm just wondering, you know, like how much of a difference it actually makes to like eat veggies, you know what I mean? Like fill a plate with veggies.
Absolutely. So I would say like protein wise, it would be not great if you only had veggies, you know, you'd be missing out on a specific amount of amino acids, you know, that's not really what veggies are very good at.
Yeah, I'm saying as an add-on, right? Because I'm obviously still gonna eat the rice and the chicken. I'm just saying like how much of it, like, yeah, how much of a difference actually makes, like as far as the nutrients goes, for you know, just adding it onto the plate.
Right. Yeah. Let's take a look. Let's go with brown rice here, because I would say that it's like, I think it's just like, it'd be like the difference between, you know, just not having it in your diet. There's just certain things that are just not, you're just not going to get. You know, it's missing certain vitamins and minerals. Unfortunately, I'm having a little bit of a hard time getting the same chart for the rice here, but this has got some of them listed. This is missing having all of them. But you take a look at here, chicken, right? Let's go back to broccoli here, right? Broccoli, not very much protein, pretty low, right? And honestly, not very many carbohydrates either. So there's just not a lot of calories located in broccoli, which is a bummer, right? But we take a look at the chicken here, right? And we can see really low in manganese. We're not getting anything there. We're not getting any copper. Iron, really, that's actually a great source of copper. Love that. Potassium, actually a pretty good source there. Sodium for sure, love that. And then look at all the B vitamins. The B vitamins are really rich, actually. So the B vitamins found in broccoli are also very rich. You can see, like, for instance, like vitamin K here is super rich. Vitamin C, but look at all the B's, like B9, 5, 6, right? Getting a good source of them, but not like thiamine and definitely not like niacin. Both these are pretty, you know, broccoli is not doing it. But suddenly you go over here. Where's my thiamine? There's niacin, right? You're getting a ton of it in there. Where's the folate? Where's thiamine? Oh, actually, thiamine's pretty low in chicken as well. That's not listed in the freaking brown rice one. So again, this is where, you know, what's going to be important, Edwin, is to get is to balance it out. Like, you are going to be able to utilize, and that's another thing too, right? Remember, B vitamins they interact with other vitamins. That's the thing about vitamins, right? Like, you know, vitamin C works with, you know, vitamin B6, right? Iron works with vitamin K, right? So like they're all sort of interacting, like these minerals and vitamins are all sort of working together. So if you had chicken and brown rice, which is good, you know, like that's a very high fiber food, very high in protein, you're getting good B vitamins, you'd be missing out on certain like fat soluble vitamins, A, D, E, and K. But if you have a little bit of broccoli in your diet, you're filling it up. Also, vitamin C is going to be really low, but broccoli is packed with vitamin C. So that's the thing, right? You're just filling in, you're trying to fill in your gaps. Hedge your bets.
For sure.
Yeah.
So there was like an end all be all veggie, it would be broccoli, you'd say, or
broccoli's
or
really
like
good.
A combination of like, yeah.
Are you looking
like
for
broccoli
the tips and tricks? Yes.
No,
honestly-
usually because I usually like, I mean, for lunch, like I've been meal prepping a lot of brown rice with chicken, and then for dinner I'll usually do like a piece of steak or salmon with broccoli and green beans.
Love it. Yeah.
So, but I don't really spread it out throughout the day. I just do like one meal where I put veggies in, you know.
So that actually isn't necessarily going to hurt you too much. If you're getting the recommended daily amount, like that's why like salads are so effective, because you're just getting a big download. And it's like you can be a little like less nutrient dense with the rest of your day. We recommend the My Plate where you're getting it all at once for most people, because that ensures that they're not going to like skip it when they get to the end of the day. Right. But if you're doing like your vitamins and minerals like that, as long as you're actually absorbing all of those vitamins and minerals, you're actually probably fine, you know. Like I have like for breakfast every morning, just a very simple bowl of like, you know, cereal, and I add a little bit of like freeze dried berries into it to like get a little bit of nutrients. But like I'm not eating cereal for its nutrient qualities, you know. I'm eating it to get me through my classes, you know. Like ooh, my internet must have crapped out. Could you repeat that last part, Evan?
Oh, no, I'll say yeah for sure. Like,
yeah.
I do the same. Like I'll eat like oatmeal in the morning with some agave or something. Yeah.
Oatmeal is really good for you, but it's not like colorful. It's not like it's packed with certain vitamins. But that's okay as long as later in the day, yeah, I know I'm gonna have a salad or something like that, you know. If you are looking for the best bang for your buck, I know everybody's like big on kale. Kale is exceptionally good for you, by the way. I hate kale, but spinach is one of the best. Collard greens are actually really, really, really good. And then like, yeah, broccoli is exceptionally high. I like green beans. They're nutriently dense, but they're not, I wish they were more nutriently dense because it's like one of my favorite veggies. Asparagus is exceptionally good for you. And then getting in like out of the greens and getting into other colorful stuff, carrots are really good. Sweet potatoes are really good. You know, sweet potatoes are also going to be calorically rich, which is kind of nice. That's why they're so popular amongst bodybuilders. You know, color, guys. That's what we're going for. You know, berries are really good. They're a little higher in sugar. You know, but particularly like the darker colored berries are really, really great. So that's what we're looking at: nutrient density and energy density. So again, we do recommend the My Plate, but Edwin, if you find that like eating like this is kind of a pain in the butt, like I get like that sometimes where I'm like, oh, I need a protein. I gotta pick my 3 pieces, and like sometimes it's a pain in the rear, you know. So it's like, you know what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go heavy on my carbs near my workout, middle of the day. It's not going to be a very colorful plate. And then for dinner tonight, I'm gonna have a salad with some protein in it. There we go. Right. Like that's a good way to kind of make up for it. That's where the recommendations of like, servings of fruits and vegetables come in. But a lot of people have a really hard time adhering to that. Or what will happen is like, they'll do very well all day. And then it's like, okay, now I got to get my veggie meal. Instead, I'm going to go see a movie, like pass, and they'll dodge it, So if you are throwing it into every meal, you're less likely to kind of skip it at the end of the day, which is why we recommend the My Plate, right? So the My Plate was created by the FDA. The idea was replacing the food pyramid, because the food pyramid is sort of what I was just describing. And that's what it used to be, where it was like, try to get this many servings of fruits and vegetables and this and that. And people just didn't find it very approachable or easy. It's actually not bad information. This actually still does work very well if you do it right, but nobody would. So we recommend it. It's like, all right, well, let's make our plates look like this. And remember, I just got in saying like your carb intake should be close to half of your calories, right? But you look at this plate here and you see that most of like the carb part is here. That's a little bit of density as well, right? This is going to be much denser in carbohydrates than, these are. This is where you're getting your nutrients from. This is where you're getting your calories from. That's how I like to think about the My Plate. Half of it is like, it's my responsibility to get vitamins and minerals in. And the other half is like, hey, I need to fuel myself for activity. This is a different thing. I'm trying to remember what this was. I think this is, I don't But here's like a different nutrition facts panel, like a different way to look at the nutrition facts panel. You can see very important thing is to always take a look at the serving size. For instance, this food here, the serving size is 1 cup, but there are 2 servings in every container. Wait a minute, this isn't like a. There's no way there's 500 calories in one thing of Reese's. Yeah, no, 140. For a second, I was like, it said cup. Maybe it's a Reese's cup, but that's way too many calories for that. I wouldn't be surprised if this is some type of peanut butter cup, though. Except that it's got trans fat. So always pay attention, guys. Start with the serving size. That's the really important thing. So many people are like, oh, there's only 250 calories in this meal, and in fact, there's 500. You know. And then try to focus on like the right like energy density. Try to get like low. If you're on a diet and you're trying to reduce your calories and make it easier, try to focus on low energy dense foods and high volume. You know, like salads are very effective because they fill you up full of like roughage. There's just a lot of food that you're eating without very many calories in it, you know? So that's what we're looking at there. When it comes to supplementation, should you take supplements? Is it important? In my opinion, not necessarily, but it may be a good way to fill in the gaps. You know, like I take a multivitamin, you know, like it's the freaking Trader Joe's one. Like, you know, it's so fun. I had a client ask me what multivitamin should I take? And they were like, I was like, honestly, I take the Trader Joe's one. She's like, you get the basic grocery brand? And I was like, yeah, because like there's not a lot of like evidence. There's not a lot of like observable evidence that we've seen where vitamin supplements are the same as food. They tried it during World War II. They were like, just give them vitamins, you know, that went very poorly. They've tried to like use vitamins as a way to like replace food, and it really has, honestly, no one's ever really pulled it off. However, is there some absorption that probably takes place? Yeah, probably. So I like to use it as a way to hedge my bets. I do not like to rely on any supplement ever, you know. Now, obviously, I've got some clients who are like, look, I'm not eating fish. It's not happening. You know, like, I hate fish. It's the worst. And it's like, all right, well, that's the type of person I'd say, you know, there's a lot of really healthy omega fats in fish. Maybe give them like a fish oil supplement or something like that that's full of like EPA and DHA. Or, you know, make sure that when they're buying eggs, they're only buying the brand that has the like the omega-3s in it, you know, or in sending them milk, right? They can get the DHA omega-3 milk, and they can get the DHA omega-3 butter, you know. Is it the same? I really don't think so personally. I'm like, come on, man, just fish once a week for me, you know. But like, that's another way to hedge your bets. There are supplement foods out there, you know. They may fill in any gaps that you have, but again, it's never intended to be like a replacement for food. That's not supplement's job. The freaking supplement industry, guys, it makes so much money by marketing to people and saying that it's the same. And it's like, oh, well, you don't have to eat that way. People are always looking for like the loopholes, right? You know, we're looking for a loophole to exploit to make dieting and exercise easier. The reality is, you know, we know exactly what we need to do. We need to move more and eat less. And we need to try to get like nutrients into our freaking diet. But we're always trying to find that like silver bullet. My parents are 100% silver bullet people. What I mean by that, when I say that, is like, you guys know the story of like how to kill a werewolf, right? The one thing that works is a silver bullet. You can shoot a werewolf with a silver bullet and that'll kill him, right? So you're telling me if I took a werewolf and shot him to the moon and then hit the moon with like a 50-ton nuclear bomb, that werewolf's gonna be fine? It's like, nope, the only thing that kills it is a silver. And so it's like the one magic answer to all of our problems, you know. We love that in media. We love stories. And I'm gonna do a whole bit on this like when we get to the habits class. when we get to exercise psychology, I talk all about like the idea of like silver bullets, you know. The reality is like we actually know what the silver bullet is, but it's a lot of hard work. So nobody actually is willing to do it. My parents are 100% those people. When I was a kid, my parents used to buy this liquid vitamin, and they were like, it's better than other vitamins because it's liquid, so it's absorbed easier. And I was like, I don't know if that's true because I'm a child, but that doesn't seem right, you know. And now that I'm older, I'm like, yeah, it probably is absorbed better. Whether or not that actually has any positive effects is what's up for debate, you know. So the freaking weight loss industry, guys, the supplement industry that is supposed to be here to help people and enhance their life, made $55 billion back in 2006. That is so much money by today's standards. So there is a lot of money in marketing, you know. I don't think they're necessarily, I would like to believe that they're not necessarily like purposefully exploiting people. I think that there's probably something, I'd hope that these people also believe in their product, you know, but just because they believe it and they're not being malicious doesn't mean they're correct, you know. And there probably is some predatory stuff out there. It's funny to be a trainer and be very anti-weight loss industry. But there's just a lot of bad science out there. So in summary, guys, everything we talked about today, this is the last day we're going to talk about nutrition till the end of this month. This is sort of the wrap up of our nutrition conversations that we are having. The rest of this is going to be kind of focused on program design, which is where that thing I was looking for earlier actually comes up tomorrow. But when it comes to weight loss goals, we want to make sure that we are getting the appropriate amount of energy without crash dieting. We want to make sure that we are getting the appropriate amount of nutrients in. One of the reasons overly restrictive calorie diets are so bad for us is because, like, when they looked at that guy who, you know, his basal metabolism was lower than it should have been, chances are he was nutrient starved for a really long time, and now his body cannot metabolize properly because certain parts of his body have starved off. That's what happens. That's what happens in like disordered eating clients as well, and why, you know, disordered eating is so dangerous. So we're going to focus on our nutrient dense options. One of the best ways to do that is to have a very good understanding of how to read a nutrition facts panel and try to make your plates look colorful and similar to the My Plate as often as possible. We have the knowledge necessary to help our clients, right? And educate them in the principles of like weight loss, portion control, energy consumption, all these things. And we can give them the tools necessary to actually think about it, you know? Like, again, I did not say that vitamin supplements don't work. That's not what I said. What I did say was there's not a lot of evidence to suggest that it replaces food. But can it sort of fill in your gaps if you're really not getting what you need? Maybe. Give it a shot, you know? Now, if you're spending $1,000 a month on supplements, I don't think you're spending your money very well. So that's, oh man, one last thing. That's like, I'll tell you, I have a friend who's in one of those like multi-level marketing things. And they have tried to get me to join up and be part of like that sales team forever now, because they're like, you're so health conscious. This is all about health. And I'm just like, look, like if it was real food, if you asked me to like multi-level market groceries, I might actually consider it. You know, like, you know, if it was me working at a farmer's market, if you told me I could make 6 figures a year selling fruits and vegetables at a farmer's market, you might actually convince me on that. But there's no world in which like I'm going to start hawking supplements that I don't think have been proven to work.
That's a business idea right there.
Yeah, right.
I know that. Isn't the P90X and all that? It was from one of those network marketing companies, no?
I don't think
like it was part of one of the programs, but they had I think it was Shakeology.
Yeah,
Shakeology, like it was like attached to that in some way. Yeah,
they're linked in some ways. I think they have a lot of
yeah.
and the Shakeology stuff is definitely multi-level. I don't think you can like sell P90X properly. I don't think so.
Oh, they just linked it or recommended it or something. I know it was connected because I had a friend that he was trying to get me to do it too, and it was like the whole, you know, he would always post workout like stuff. I think him and his wife were doing really good, but now they're doing like their own juicing company or something. I don't know.
Man, dude, Tony Horton, he made more than $1 million. He made $1 million off writing a routine all about push-ups. Like that's all P90X is push-ups and squat jumps. And I was like, ugh. And I like both. For the record, it's not a terrible program. But like,
I think Tony Horton has really made like a big comeback because he's so much older and is still fit.
Yeah. Well, that's like, who was the guy who used to do those he used to do those like not decathlons, telethons. He was like a fitness guy who would do a telethon.
With the ponytail?
What's that?
You're talking about the short blonde guy with the ponytail?
Yeah. What was that guy's name? He died a couple years ago. He was so famous. No, not Jerry Lewis. Oh man. Old guy. He was an old guy. He did it for so long. He was so fit. It was so cool. Jack LaLanne.
Oh, I didn't think you were talking about him. I thought he would come to your mind right away.
Yeah, I couldn't think of his name, but
I remember him.
And he set like a world record as like a 70-year-old guy for push-up. It was incredible. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know, Tony Horton. I actually have nothing against him. He was at an event that I went to one time, and he was super nice.
But I do think that what's helped him now is the fact that he was fit for so long and then kind of fell off the earth for a bit and then came back, and being super fit at his age, I mean, that really gave him like credentials, you know, like
marketing, you know, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right.
Is it master athlete?
Right. Master athlete. Got it. I want to, love that.